Young ladies and gentlemen, good evening everyone. Welcome in this new conference Geopolitics dedicated to current events global. Top news internationally. Russia continues its special military operation on the side from Ukraine. And at the moment we are in the process of to speak, despite speaking in the airs, despite the incessant rivalry between Russia and the United States from America, Putin continues in the most beautiful in order to recover all of the Ukrainian territories. Today, 11 November 2025, we have the city, mythical, symbolic city and strategic of Pokrovsk, which ultimately risks falling. You know, there had been a first attempt. Pokrovsk was already almost fell, but NATO troops and Ukrainian women managed to re-enter the territory. This time, it's a new reconquest. At the very moment we are talking, Pokrovsk is completely surrounded. Well, it's still just a small part. And this encirclement is such that all logistical access to Ukrainian and NATO troops who found on the ground of Pokrovsk, these troops are cut off from all support. Let's just say that these troops are now, in a way, trapped. So, meanwhile, the Union European obviously continues to force Ukraine, which no longer has army, which no longer has ammunition in as such, to continue combat on the field of hostilities, but faced with a situation where the Ukrainian soldiers are trapped. So, within the framework of this conference, ladies and gentlemen, this is the news we are going to talk about. But before continuing, please agree to share the conference as much as possible. Give it lots of likes, and don't forget, above all, do not leave your differences. Leave your comments below. Let's delve into the depths. It's an intensive urban combat, a massive fight on the Pokrovsk side. Pokrovsk is of vital importance for Ukraine. He has said it to the Dean, we recall. Again, it is a territory of paramount importance, since Pokrovsk has a number of axes, road transport, that allows for refueling other troops on the Ukrainian territory. So, Moscow claimed to have pushed much further in the region of Pokrovsk and towards Kuyansk. These troops breached the defenses Ukrainians. Moscow is proceeding with these claims, and images have been circulated, which are images of small units motorized penetrating this ravaged city. So, Russian motorized vehicles penetrated the city of Pokrovsk, a city which is already completely ruined. You know that there are Ukrainian soldiers who are concentrated in a corner of the city, but which now have no access to any aid, but no logistical support or of whatever nature. Pokrovsk almost completely surrounded. Again, it is important to remember this, since a few months ago, Pokrovsk was already falling. But as if by a miracle, with the support from NATO, they managed to return. So this encirclement, almost all that has been announced by the Russian Ministry of Defense, this was denied by Kiev. And you know that Ukraine has taken for habit of denying. When someone says, when the realities on the ground are displayed, Ukraine has always took the time to deny, and it's the same technique. And so Kiev demands a total encirclement. Kiev says the battle continues with precarious access corridors under Russian drones. So Ukraine outright recognizes, obviously, the battle is tough. But there are corridors, means paths that allow the units, Ukrainian women, to share the conference. So To put it simply, Ukrainian soldiers, they sleep under the corridor. Do not pass, not this corridor, but under pressure, Russian drones. So that's what makes it. Ukraine is also trying to implement, this is what is called lateral pressure. Ukraine strikes around the towns of like Dobropilia to straighten the situation. But unfortunately, so far it doesn't work. So far it hasn't worked. So it's what is happening. And finally, it must be said that, as we have announced, the Russians are in the process of enter by unit into the territory of Pokrovsk. The others that form the belt, others penetrating the image of the technical of the Buffalo Head War that was used by Takazulu in times past in Africa. So, what's going on? We have some Russian assault groups that are in the process of implementing movements, rapids, that progress in the localities. But there are also difficulties. The Russians are not, the terrain is not as easy for them, since Ukraine is only striking drones with drones. So in the hours to days that follow, this city will fall. If this city comes under the control of Russian, it's going to be a huge loss for Ukraine and of course NATO. So it must also be said that the situation is becoming complicated. And if Russia locks down the Krovis project, this is an immediate threat to the other locality called Kramatorsk. Whether it's Kramatorsk, whether it's Slovian, all these localities will be threatened as soon as Pokrovsk goes definitely fall. So if Kiev maintains a corridor, that is to say, manages to maintain the pressure so as not just for what falls, is that we will continue to witness a wearing down of the conflict on this side because of the Russians. They absolutely do not want to give up. It must also be said that, and on the Ukrainian side, we reject everything. We say it's not true. Since recognizing and affirming that Pokrovsk is about to fall, that would be a way to demonstrate the weakness of Ukraine and its NATO allies. However, the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, which is a conflict of attrition, a conflict that has lasted too long, that even the media, those who speak about this conflict are tired now we can talk about it. In this conflict, they inevitably want to show Ukraine's position of power. However, in practice, Ukraine no longer has of power, has no strength whatsoever, regardless of financial means granted to Ukraine. Impossible. So, here's what's happening past by the town of Pokrovsk. We'll come back to this with other news. Thank you all. See you soon. The time.